Welcome to the Maha Media Hub. This is our 22nd live show. So the first year of the Maha revolution is just about over, and our shared successes should really make us all proud. Secretary Kennedy and his team have made sweeping, decisive changes, and they've also, we've also seen historic cultural changes. After a generation of corruption, we all understand now that we need to question authority through, radical transparency and access to real science, as opposed to corporate talking points masquerading as science. We can all make better, healthier choices, for ourselves, for our families. And to foster these better choices, Secretary Kennedy and Dr. Oz and the whole team at HHS are fighting to make it easier and more affordable to be healthy. That's really critical. And we've gone from a government focused on helping corporations maximize profit to a government that's working hard to rebuild trust and end the chronic disease epidemic in this country. Whether it's food, drugs, vaccines, pesticides, chemicals, or really anything else, we want Americans to have access to healthier products and the right to choose which products we all put into our bodies. Winning at Maha means leveling the playing field, ending censorship, and including the broadest possible spectrum of ideas and perspectives. So let me just make it clear. We support the Trump administration 100%. And we want to work with every cabinet member, with every branch of government to support the government, to be a resource to them, and to help them challenge a status quo that have made Americans the sickest people on earth. And we want to play a role in working with them to make all Americans healthier. This is the opportunity of a lifetime at an existential moment. And on behalf of the whole Maha movement, I'm just thrilled to be part of it and part of the process of healing this country. On today's show, we have some incredible speakers. We have government officials, doctors, scientists, activists, who are all helping to usher in this new age of health, of transparency, and of gold standard science. We're going to hear from Dr. Oz, the fearless leader of CMS, Governor Morrisey of West Virginia, the first governor to fully embrace the Maha movement by implementing really groundbreaking reforms. And then Dr. Stephanie Haridopolos, Chief of Staff for the U.S. Surgeon General, who's dedicated her life to public health. And then we're also joined by Dr. Ben Carson of the USDA, Cora, Mandy of the EPA, and then Dr. Steve Phillips and Dr. Michal, who are both doing groundbreaking work in Lyme disease. They're going to discuss the positive things coming out of HHS this week. And then we're going to wrap up with our dedicated regular people, Dr. Robert Malone, Sayer G, Gary Brecka, and then, of course, Russell Brand. So let's welcome our first speaker, a true leader who's been working around the clock to shift the focus from treatment to prevention, from drugs to nutrition. He's been making great strides to make it easier to be healthy by reducing the cost of being healthy. Welcome, Dr. Mehmet Oz.
Tony, congratulations. You have a long-running series. The average serial is probably 26 shows, so you're most of the way there. Congratulations. I know there's a lot of folks watching. Many of you weren't here in the very beginning, but part of the reason you come, and I'm hoping continue to come, is we bring the best and up-to-date material to you to keep you informed about what's going on. So on Monday, this week's headline, Secretary Kennedy and I hosted a Lyme summit. Now, he hosted several hours of it. The man has incredible energy. One of the reasons he's a great leader is he's able to just keep focused. And he said at the very outset that he just likes to listen to people and hear what's really happening on the ground. I joined him for the first hour because there was a very specific question, a homework assignment that he gave me that I promised to deliver on, and I did that. But before I get to the prize, what was the essence of what we were talking about? And essentially, it comes down to one fundamental reality. When you mix politics and medicine, you get politics. You actually drown out the medicine, you remove it completely. And there's some areas, and chronic Lyme disease is an example of that, where the politics have gotten so heavy, so powerfully opposed to some of the alternative approaches to treating this condition that is a short-circuiting of the body, that it's led now to political fights. And those political fights, of course, end up destroying the ability of people to get to care that might have helped them. Now, it's not just about chronic Lyme, because as I mentioned, if it's the short circuiting of the body, that's a bigger theme. It's able to include things like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, other illnesses that you get from tick-borne conditions, Borrelia and Burgdorferi, and a whole bunch of problems that go beyond the scope of today's discussion. But when a tick bites you, it doesn't just put bacteria in you, like the Lyme bacteria, it also puts into your body viruses. And so there's all kinds of complicated things that happen to the body when that happens. And that's one of the reasons that I think it's so important for us to be open about the reality that we don't have all the answers, and maybe some alternative approach that has been experimented on that's yielding really great results. We had some of these doctors come to the event to speak to these issues, should be listened to a bit more thoughtfully. So Secretary Kennedy is motivated, as you know, by times when we just seem to not listen to what patients are telling us. So in an effort to make sure that people are heard, he asked me, it's my homework assignment, to look at what Medicare pays for when it comes to chronic conditions. And what happens if you have chronic Lyme? You have to pay out of pocket because it's pretty expensive, and these are problematic. So looked it up. I went with my team, and again, there's a code that's for chronic care management, and chronic care management can encompass all kinds of issues that you would normally associate with chronic care. So Alzheimer's, arthritis, asthma, AFib, autism actually is on that list. But it turns out having a chronic infection without an unclear cause that's expected to last for at least 12 months, or this is the important part, or death, also counts as a chronic condition that warrants management and therefore is eligible for Medicare payment. Now, this wasn't that clearly articulated on our website. We have changed the site to reflect this. I want you all to know so people can get the care they desire. But at its very core, Medicare's job is to adjudicate fairly to protect the taxpayer, therapies that could be helpful, but we're not supposed to get in the way of people getting life-saving therapy, and we're not supposed to consider money. It's about helping Americans, because if you get people to be able to function at the height of their capabilities, they'll go out and build value for the American people. And that's part of this administration's desire, Secretary Kennedy's passion as well, is get America working again, do the things that help us achieve that ultimate goal of living your fullest life possible. Now, the MAHA movement, which is, obviously you're all part of here because of that, is so powerfully a part of what we're doing at HHS that each of the agencies, including mine, at Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, wants to offer as many options as possible that fulfill that promise. And so Gita Dio is here. Gita is a woman who's running CMMI right now. Abe Sutton just had a little baby boy, so he's out for a couple of weeks. And Gita, who's been a spectacular addition to the team anyway, and been making huge contributions, is now running the organization. And I asked her to come on and speak for a few minutes about what the MAHA model is. Now, and within Medicare, when we try these new ideas, we put them in what's called a model so we can watch them carefully. It's like having a sandbox you can play in and be very careful and thoughtful so we can innovate. So we are now allowing multiple MAHA-friendly opportunities to arise that the American people who are Medicare can take advantage of, and we're watching them. So here's Gita to take it away.
Amazing. Thank you. Hello. Thank you, Dr. Oz. As Dr. Oz said, the CMMI Innovation Center is an area that CMS can use to innovate and run experiments within the system. We are really excited to announce last week the MAHA Elevate model, which will, for the first time, test whole person functional and lifestyle medicine interventions that haven't been covered by Medicare traditionally. And so this is going to include interventions like nutrition and physical activity that will help slow or prevent chronic diseases and also focus upstream on the primary prevention aspects of care as well. We will be giving out around 100 million in grants to medicines and build an evidence base that can turn into future models or potential policy changes as well. And hoping to actually have these go into effect and start testing these as early as fall of next year. So very excited to have that and to hear all the proposals that come in. Back to you, Dr. Oz.
We're all done. Back to you. We'll stay on time. We got a lot of luminaries out there. They'll get mad. Also getting hate mail from the other speakers.
Thanks so much. Thanks for coming on. It's such an important point that healthy people have 1,000 dreams. Sick people only have one dream. We want the MAHA movement wants people to be able to pursue their dreams. We want them to be happier and healthier. And that's really at the core of the MAHA movement. Next up, we have Patrick Morrisey, governor of West Virginia. He's just been, a great advocate for MAHA and has been, running the first state to adopt MAHA policies and plans. So I just want to express my deepest condolences for the tragic loss of Sergeant Sarah Beckstrom, and to wish Sergeant Andrew Wolf a full and swift recovery, following their ambush in Washington, D.C. And also just great thanks to Governor Patrick Morrisey for all the great work he's been doing. Welcome, Governor Morrisey.
Well, thank you so much. And it's wonderful to be with all of you today. Since we last got together, there have been a number of big developments coming out of West Virginia. And I want to say thanks to all of you for the work you're putting on the ground, because you make a big difference. I can tell you in West Virginia, people care very passionately about the MAHA movement, and they know that there's finally movement in the states and at the federal level to engage in big policy directional change that's going to actually help people live healthier, more productive lives. One of the things I'm always fond of saying as I go out and talk about some of the MAHA initiatives, the rural health transformation grants, is that when we engage in prevention, when we think about helping create healthier, more productive lives, you're actually influencing what the future looks like. The future doesn't have to be that people are as sickly as they are and consuming as many dollars on Medicaid and Medicare throughout their whole life. There's an opportunity to invest in the here and now. And as I talk a little bit during this presentation about rural health transformation, I think you'll see what I mean by that. But every initiative that MAHA is putting together, I think, is trying to make people healthier and move the needle in terms of reducing the chronic diseases that have really been a plague on our citizenry and have also blown out healthcare costs in our country, where we're not getting good value for the amazing amounts of dollars that we're putting in. And it's with that spirit in mind that we took the baton and started to run from a state perspective to advance the MAHA movement right here out of West Virginia. West Virginia may not be the largest state in the nation, but we pack a good punch. And beginning last year, we got out in front on a number of core initiatives, and we're very pleased to work with Secretary RFK and with Dr. Oz and so many people within the Trump administration in order to advance policies that we think are going to make people healthier and create this virtuous cycle where if you invest in people's health up front, it leads to more people into the workforce, it leads to more productivity, and ultimately that strengthens your economy and allows the standard of living to rise. It all flows from healthcare outcomes, and that's why everything we're doing is built with that goal in mind. One of the first initiatives that we really focused on was trying to get the crap out of the food. We talk about the food dye ban, but in reality, it's much broader than that. It's how we make sure that we're much more cognizant of what we're putting into our bodies. And West Virginia passed that first law last year. And boy, there was a real ripple effect. Other states started to pass similar legislation. And then separately, you start to see what that did on the federal level, because no one wants the patchwork effect where you have 50 different standards. But what you saw is that there were new initiatives to get the nonsense out of the food, and states followed. The feds have now made announcements where so many companies are voluntarily stepping up to do some of the things that we've talked about right here in West Virginia. So really big. We're excited about that. And we think as we get further along, it won't be long before all states in the country have the unprocessed foods. The processed foods getting out of their school lunches and getting the dye out. It's just a matter of time. So that's the first initiative we worked on. The second one, which we're very proud to advance, was the SNAP waiver. I believe I was the first or one of the first states in the nation to ensure that there would no longer be an entitlement for soda under SNAP. And you take a lot of grief when you do things like this, but we thought that was important because we talked a lot about the fact that soda had no nutritional value. And the N in SNAP does stand for nutrition, a point that I like to make all the time. I think that started another wave where many other states stepped forward. And I think we're going to continue to see more progress with respect to the kinds of foods that are available under SNAP that'll be healthier for people, that can once again be needle movers to get people in a better place where we're not contributing to some of the terrible disease states that are out there. The third piece, and it doesn't get talked often enough, but the third pillar that we're really focused on was trying to build on the first thing, Tony, that you were saying. We want people to be happier. We want people to be healthier, but we also want people to be more purposeful in their lives. So we were very strong out of the gate to support work requirements for SNAP and for Medicaid. And I probably have been as vocal as any governor in the country because we think it's really good when you're working, when you're holding down a job, great things happen. And ultimately, when you're working, especially if you're in the commercial sector, that's going to reduce or eliminate some of the placements within Medicaid. And you have the opportunity to be on consistent long-term commercial coverage, which also has many beneficial effects. So work requirements are good. Work is good. Work is moral. And in West Virginia, it's a top priority because right now we have the lowest workforce participation rate in America. And if we could begin to move that needle just a little bit, think about the amazing effects on our economy. The fourth component was to get moving, to get out there and to start exercising. So in West Virginia, we instituted a program called the Mountaineer Mile. And after I announced it, I said, look, I'm going to try to lead by example. I certainly need to drop a few pounds, and I acknowledged it. And since I announced that initiative back in late February, I've not missed a day. We've averaged well over 10,000 steps a day, and we have different counties and different people from across West Virginia getting out and walking the Mountaineer Mile, moving a little bit more, engaging in more physical exercise. That's incredible. And I think that's a trend line that's only going to accelerate in the next year. Part of the reason that's going to accelerate is getting to the fifth big initiative that we're working on, which is our Rural Health Transformation Grant. We are going to be very aggressive to reinstitute the presidential fitness test in West Virginia and continue to do more to ensure that our youth are very active and they are exercising much more regularly. That's going to lead to better healthcare outcomes into the future. Next year, around this time, you'll be hearing about contests, about people who are working out, people who are trying to lose weight. And that's one of the many things that we'll do in state government to start to improve healthcare outcomes for people at an early age. We know West Virginia right now has the highest incident rate of diabetes and obesity and many other disease states. We want to make a difference in that area, and prevention really makes a big difference. Finally, the other piece that we're really proud to be out in front, and I think we're going to be a big leader on, is in rural health transformation. I think we've submitted a very good grant to CMS, and we're very hopeful for getting some good results. But within that application, we have something called the Personal Healthcare Accelerator, which is going to be investing in having food as medicine and looking at all the food that you're eating up front and looking at nutrition education. That's going to make a big difference in West Virginia. And when you do that, you think proactively up front, you truly then have the chance to improve those healthcare outcomes and ultimately spend a lot less at the back end, the sick care that you hear Dr. Oz and others talk about, because people are healthier and they don't have the need to go into the hospital or spend as long in institutional settings. So we're doing a lot on our own. We're doing a lot in collaboration with the Trump administration. We're really excited about that. And I'm really just to give you an update on the front lines from wild and wonderful West Virginia.
Thanks so much, Patrick. And, you've just been doing a really great job, and we're really grateful. And, let me just say, too, that you look great. And it's clear that you've been working out, you've been eating better, and you're really an inspiration people have to see that their leaders are willing to work hard personally and for the state. And I just think that you've been doing a great job, and that your point that we need to help make people happier, healthier, and also more purposeful. That's just a great point. That we want people to be productive, and that is really a big part of all of this. So thanks so much for everything.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Next up, we have Dr. Stephanie Haridopolos. She is a board-certified family medicine physician, a medical writer, a public health advocate with more than 2 decades of work in all of these areas. And she's currently serving as the Chief of Staff and the Senior Advisor to the Office of the Surgeon General. Thanks so much and welcome.
Well, thank you so much. This is amazing that you've asked me to participate in this, and congratulations on your long-running show. I am in awe of the list of participants today. We've had a great week at HHS. And let me tell you, between the 2 announcements that we've had the last 2 days, one being the live stream roundtable, which of course, the Lyme disease, all of you know so much about. And it was truly an honor. Secretary Kennedy earlier this year said, Stephanie, this is important to me. He gave me my marching orders. And with Dr. Kristen Honey and I, we put together the list of panelists and organized this event. And I believe it was a true success. It was making the invisible diseases visible. And I think that the Lyme community was so appreciative that their voices are being heard and seen. And we are going to work very hard. This is just the beginning of the journey. Public health always starts with you listen to people. You then communicate with them, and then you act accordingly. That's the pillar of public health. And so with that, you saw the press release with the website and the fact sheets that had some wins with the LymeX Foundation, reauthorization, which is going to help us with innovation accelerator to support accurate detection and treatment for Lyme disease patients, but also just recognizing that a persistent infection exists that can encompass autoimmune dysregulation as well as gut biome dysregulation. There are so many factors that go into it. So with that said, we are now pivoting from dismissing patients who are sick to recognizing them and moving the ball forward for them, meeting them where they're at with improving treatments for quality of life symptoms, and making sure that everyone has a seat at the table, which is what we did on Monday. And we're just so proud of that work. And what you might not know, and you may or may not have heard, but I wanted to take the opportunity to educate you. Yesterday, another big announcement that we worked on very hard for the past 6 months, and that was adding 2 rare diseases to the recommended uniform screening panel for newborns. These 2 diseases are called Duchenne's muscular dystrophy and metachromatic leukodystrophy. These 2 rare diseases, unfortunately, have horrible fates when not detected. And now they have, MLD has wonderful diagnostic tests that is almost 100% specific and sensitive, and a cure with gene therapy. Therefore, I can't think of a better public health initiative than to add that to the newborn screening. And Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, if detected early, you can mitigate the progression of that disease and really give that quality of life where people are living into their 20s, 30s, and 40s now with Duchenne's. But MLD was incompatible with life if not treated in time. And this changes. Yesterday, Secretary Kennedy signed the executive memorandum in front of all the families and patients that have been advocating for years to make this happen. And it was a huge win to saving children's lives. And it was wonderful to happen before Christmas. So now the call to action is the implementation to the states. And I'm so glad we had a governor on just recently, because 14 states are aligned with adopting the RUSP recommendations. And so that encompasses about 50% of the population, but the rest of the states have their own implementation pathways. So I wrote an opinion editorial that was published in Newsweek yesterday, asking the states to quickly adopt that to save children's lives. And just to give you an idea, until this is implemented, 1 child a week will die of MLD and many more of Duchenne's because of the incidence in the general population. So time is of the essence. So I am so glad that you gave me the opportunity to amplify our message with you today, to get out to the masses about these 2 important diseases. Secretary Kennedy and the president care about the children's lives and want to save them. And that's why we did this in a very expedited manner. I know Dr. Carson's on, and I'm sure you're so happy to hear about this win that we had at HHS, sir. And it's an honor to be on a panel along with you. I've admired you for many years, and I just wanted to say that. But thank you. I know we have lots of other speakers. This won't be my last time if you invite me again to come on the show. So I didn't want to run into anyone else's time, but thank you so much for allowing me to give you the great news that came out of the Office of the Surgeon General and HHS today.
Yeah, thanks so much. And we will definitely have you on more if you're willing to come. And thanks so much for helping to set up the Lyme panel. You know, that's just such a critical thing. People by the millions suffer from Lyme. They've been ignored, they've been stigmatized, and now it's really out in the open. It's going to be focused on. And so it's, thanks for the work that you've done to make that possible.
Truly an honor. Thank you so much.
Next up, we have Dr. Stephen Phillips. He's a Yale-trained doctor who's focused his practice and research on chronic disease caused by chronic infections. His expert testimony has been just critical to passing laws that impact Lyme disease and that help shape public health policy in multiple states having to do with Lyme and many other things. So thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Tony. I hope the connection is okay. Apologies for my informal attire. I went right to vacation after the meeting in Washington. It was a phenomenal meeting, and thank you. And the energy there was really electric. I mean, the chronic illness community is so enthusiastic about this new administration and Secretary Kennedy. I can't tell you how appreciative they are. But I'd like to, if I could, paint the 4 corners of why we have such a problem with this illness and the associated illnesses. So the major diagnostic tests that doctors rely on to try to figure out what's wrong with people that come with puzzling chronic symptoms are Lyme antibody tests. They're literally 40 years old, and on their best day, they're abysmal. They miss more diagnoses than they make. And the reasons are fairly straightforward. The bacteria, when it's in a tick, expresses different proteins, and the antibody tests, they target those proteins. Once it goes into a mammal, the bacteria start to express different proteins, and it's a completely different set of targets, and we don't have antibody tests for those targets. So the antibody tests can be fixed up, and there actually is data out there, and there are some tests available in Europe that look for these altered proteins. But still, antibody tests on their best day, they still fail. And the reason they fail is because if you give somebody 3 weeks of doxycycline, on day 20, you could say you have active Lyme, and on day 21, if the test is still positive, you can no longer differentiate, does this person still have Lyme, or do they no longer have Lyme? And we have a lack of direct detection tests. So the bacteria that causes Lyme disease has always been extremely difficult to isolate from mammals that have the illness. So if you inject Lyme bacteria into an animal and wait 3 months, you can't find the bacteria in the blood of that animal. When you cut the animal up, you can find the bacteria. So with the current antibiotics that are supposed to cure Lyme, we have not been able to cure Lyme from mice, from dogs, from monkeys, from horses. And there have been multiple studies of humans that went into various surgeries. It's almost always tissue. They get some knee surgery or heart surgery, surgery on the brain or the eye, and they find Lyme bacteria hiding in them. And we're talking after months to years of antibiotics. So we have very, very good evidence that it's not an easily curable disease. And yet this enormous patient population has been probably among the most disenfranchised of any patient population that I'm aware of. So, and I believe I was hearing as I was trying frantically to fix the connection problems, Dr. Oz talking about how it's related to other diseases, other autoimmune diseases. Yes, they say that Lyme can mimic all these other disease states. So it can mimic identically multiple sclerosis. It can mimic rheumatoid arthritis. It can mimic fibromyalgia. And by definition, if it mimics these other diseases, then what percentage of these other diseases is it actually causing? And I can tell you that I've been in practice 30 years. I've treated over 25,000 patients. And patients, when they come in, we say, "What's your story?" They say, "Oh, I went to the doctor. I had, symptoms 1 through 15. One doctor diagnosed with fibromyalgia. The other doctor diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. And then they have a couple of brain lesions. They get started getting MS diagnosis. And when we treat these patients, these other associated kind of descriptive diagnoses get better, and they no longer carry those diagnoses. So there's a very broad pot that needs to be investigated, and a lot of people can benefit from the better therapies that are coming out. And the last thing that I would add in terms of novel approaches to cure this illness is we have a whole set of checkpoint inhibitors that are used for immunotherapy for cancer. We have a new therapy, an IL-15 therapy, that's very promising for cancer. The same unleashing of the immune system that people do for cancer, and that's being researched for various cancers, should be researched in animal studies for Lyme to see if we can help eradicate these organisms in animal studies first, and then go to human trials. So that's where I think the research should be headed.
Thank you so much, Steve. And that's an incredible number to have treated 25,000 patients. So thanks for the incredible work that you've been doing. And Lyme is clearly just a really complicated thing. It's just tough, and it's about time that we have a government that's focused on it and that's willing to look at novel therapies, all kinds of different ways of looking at this and of studying it to get to the bottom of something that millions of people in this country suffer from. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Next up, please welcome Michal. She studies why Lyme infections lead to chronic illness, and she's developing tools to make the invisible symptoms that accompany Lyme measurable, quantifiable, and to identify patients who are most at risk so that treatment can begin sooner and before the illness really becomes debilitating. So thanks so much for the groundbreaking work that you've been doing, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here. I was very honored to participate earlier this week at the HHS Roundtable on Lyme, and get to speak also with other innovators and decision makers. So this was really an honor, and it's amazing to see chronic Lyme getting the visibility that it's so needed. I'm an immunoengineer at MIT, and I've been working on infectious disease immunology for the last 20 years and Lyme for the last 10. And things are really changing right now, and that energy is palpable. So I'm very excited to be a part of this at this moment. I think that something that's really important that's been holding back advancements in chronic Lyme and our ability to test different treatments is that part of what's been making this an invisible illness is not that people aren't obviously very unwell from it. It's that we haven't had the right ways we haven't had the tools that we've needed to measure it. And there are now cutting edge tools available that really can allow us to visualize so much of what's going wrong. And I think that one of the real tragedies is that today still people are told that they're fine while their bodies are breaking down, and that we wait for their bodies to break down to intervene and to help. And so I think that one of the really critical things is to take some of these symptoms that we've called subjective and we haven't had ways to measure, and to really put hard numbers on those, so that we can measure, so that we can track. And so I run a clinical study at MIT called MIT Maestro. And what the concept behind that study is to measure absolutely everything. So this is because doctors can't ask their patients if their connective tissue is breaking down, if their blood is flowing to their head, if their blood-brain barrier is intact, but these are things that we can measure. And so I was, showing some of what we can measure, but we can measure voltage that's coming out of the brain using EEGs. We can measure how your eyes are moving using eye tracking, and that allows us to distinguish between brain functions and vision. And we can look at how your blood is flowing through your body. We can look at it through your nail beds. We can look at how much blood is flowing upwards to your head. And these are really important tools that we are seeing that are really allowing us to identify people that are at the most risk, and also identify change in their illness and identify things that are helping them. We are really intent to see things start to change, and also to try to intervene before things go catastrophically wrong. So the other thing that we're really trying to develop is how early in the response to infection can we detect if you are on track to recover and you're never going to have to worry about this infection again, versus if you are not on track to recover and things are actually going catastrophically wrong. Could we possibly help you before you have to spend those years suffering and then kind of repair all of this damage? So I hope that's what we'll be able to do. I'm really thrilled to be part of this conversation and to have Lyme really getting a seat at the table finally. So these are exciting times.
Thanks, Mickey. It's clearly so critical to have early detection, whether it's cancer or Lyme or so many other things. So thanks for the great work that you've been doing, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Dr. Ben Carson, and he is the National Nutrition Advisor for the USDA. He's the former HUD secretary, author of a ton of books, retired neurosurgeon, founder of the American Cornerstone Institute, and has done so many other critical and important things. Let's welcome Dr. Ben Carson, just a really impressive guy, and I'm just proud to have him on the show.
My computer's been doing very strange things on its own lately. I guess maybe some AI component. But, I've had a medical career that's spanned more than 50 years and have seen a lot of things happen during that time. I always get a chuckle when I go back and look at some of my notes from medical school and compare them to what we know now. It's really quite funny. But we're making good progress. And in that 50 years, I've never seen this kind of emphasis on the whole being, the mental, spiritual, physical aspects of the human being. Is actually very exciting to take a holistic approach to what's going on. However, lately, there's been some discussion about reclassifying the drug marijuana. And, it's having a problem. The Trump administration's had many victories, in terms of cleaning up the cities, decreasing crime, border security, and introducing MAHA and actually seeing it flourish. And it's obviously going to have a very positive impact. But there was a study done last year that found that young men who use marijuana on a daily basis and were addicted had an 82% higher incidence of violence. Think about that, 82% as opposed to non-users. That's a problem. We certainly don't want that to ruin the lives of our young people. Now, as someone who spent years and years working on taking care of families, I've seen so much destruction from drugs. And marijuana is a gateway drug. And some people say, but it really doesn't do that much. It gives you a little buzz and you're feeling okay. Well, maybe that was true long, long time ago. 4 or 5 decades ago, you were talking about THC concentrations of 2 to 3%. Now you're talking 90% and greater. It's a different drug, and it has a different impact than it did in the past. So the health and safety of our communities, of our families, in fact, of our nation, needs to look at these kind of effects as well. And some people say it doesn't cause any real damage. Say that to the families of someone who has had a psychotic break and done bad things or gotten into a violent situation that impacted their freedom. It does have an impact, and we need to be looking at the impact of things like this, as well as high sugar and wrong kinds of fats and salt. All these things are important, but the mental aspects of our country are every bit as important as anything else.
Thanks so much, Dr. Ben Carson. It's such an important point that everything should stay on the table. That nothing is ever settled. That there's never going to be settled science, and that your books 50 years ago when you were in medical school, they were wrong about all kinds of things, but they were the best science that we had at the time. And right. We're always going to have the possibility of learning more, and everything should be on the table. And we should be able, if 1 million people come out and have studies saying that marijuana is perfectly fine, that it's not a threat to anybody, that doesn't mean that it ends there. That's the beginning. And we always have to rethink things and look at the actual data. So, that's just a great point. And then the other point that when we talk about health, we have to look at all kinds of health, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual, anything, that we have to look at the whole body. And I think that you're right, that what we have now is an administration that's open to kind of really looking at things for the first time in a generation, where the information people are getting isn't just pharmaceutical or agricultural or big tech talking points. It's actual people like you and like so many of the other people coming on today who are just giving their version of the facts and of the science, and that's such a breakthrough. Thanks so much for coming on. Next up, we have Cora Mandy. She leads all communications and messaging for Trump's EPA, and she is the EPA's sort of builder of their public narrative, of their press strategy, of their external messaging to ensure that it's clear, accurate, and consistent. And we're just really, really happy to be working with the EPA to give them our take on the things that are critical to the safety of the public and to the MAHA movement. So thanks so much for coming on. And we're just glad to be in this dialogue with the EPA.
Tony, thank you so much. It is wonderful to be here. And you can see in the background, I've got Turner, who is one of our ag advisors here at EPA as well. And just really, we are so thrilled to be able to continue to have this open dialogue, these conversations with the MAHA community and the voices within the community who are raising awareness for for all Americans about, issues with food supply, chemicals, all of these things that impact that the whole of health, like a holistic view at health. And so we have been meeting with folks over the last several weeks to talk about ways that EPA is able to help advance the MAHA agenda. Administrator Zeldin, who could not be here today, but sends his best, is very, very focused on ensuring that, we are advancing priorities that provide better health outcomes for all Americans. So, we've addressed a lot of different issues with folks in the meetings that we've been having. We've answered a lot of questions about pesticides and chemicals and water quality, and all of these things are part of our statutory obligations at EPA, ensuring that Americans have access to the safest products, safe drinking water, a safe food supply. We're going to continue to do that, and I know some of you all might be aware, we are working on a MAHA agenda at EPA. We're really excited to be able to share that and get feedback from anyone who wants to provide it. We're really looking to hear from everyone and make sure that it's a fulsome representation of everything that we can do to continue to advance this agenda. And Turner, I can turn it over to you if you've got anything to say.
Yeah, thanks, Cora. Just echoing off some of her points that we're very excited about trying to find ways on the agricultural piece, especially the regenerative ag growing sector, the growing movement in this space, of how the EPA can be of a resource. What can we learn from these communities and these growers from across the country, whether you're growing just an acre of strawberries in Florida or you're growing, a couple thousand acres of wheat somewhere. That how can we learn from those that are adopting some of these newer growing methods and models that take in this full soil health? I think one thing we're very excited about is the USDA's announcement on the Regenerative Ag Pilot Program. We're looking forward to engaging with them and learning how to ensure we can work together, how we can be a resource to them. And one of the things that has been really a standout over the last couple of weeks as we engaged with the regenerative ag industry is the passion behind them, and the idea that, everybody has different growing methods, growing models, challenges, opportunities, but I think there is a very much a strong momentum of trying to move this new growing practices into in better places. How can we ensure that what we're looking at from the gold standards of science and ensuring that we're communicating back and forth, understanding that for a very long time when people talk about the agriculture industry, it's us talking with the regulated community, but now championing this MAHA movement of trying to bring them in and hear their concerns and seeing where we can best answer questions and work collaboratively. That these are things that we're very excited about, and stay tuned for future actions in the next year.
Thanks so much, Cora and Turner. It's been probably 20 years since activists had the ability, the chance to really go in and meet people from the EPA and present their studies, give their views, and that's just so critical, and it's such a tribute to Trump's EPA that we can talk openly about chemicals, pesticides, water safety, food safety. And, we just are very grateful for the chance to work closely with you to solve problems and to help make people healthier in this country. So thanks again for coming on. Next up, we have Dr. Robert Malone. He's been on this show many, many times, and he's probably the most important voice in the medical freedom movement and in informed consent, and has been laser focused on exposing corruption in the medical fields. He's a member of the CDC's ACIP, and is just doing a fantastic job day and night. Thanks so much, and welcome, Dr. Robert Malone.
Hi, Tony, and thanks a lot for not calling me out as the original inventor of mRNA vaccines. I want to take a moment to say Merry Christmas to all of us. It's been a hell of a year, and sometimes it's hard to remember that we need to take the wins, and we need to recognize how far we've come over the last year. But I also want to talk to you about something that involves families. Remember, MAHA isn't just about children. It's about families in particular and the importance of family. And there's a policy that is being advocated by many using the hashtag #NoVaxNoVisit. And what I'm talking about is called cocooning. This is the historic policy that parents increasingly are, particularly from certain generations, are saying that no, grandparents can't be present at the time of birth. They can't be around their new grandchild if they haven't been fully vaccinated. So let's talk about that just for a minute, about cocooning. And I'm going to give you the punchline at the start. Leave the cocooning to the caterpillars. We don't need cocooning. It's not working. So the logic that has been promoted through a variety of things, including, of course, the advertisement, the famous ad that Aaron Siri got taken down, where you have an image of a grandmother accepting a newborn infant and she suddenly turns into the big bad wolf. And there's a little tagline there about the risks associated with pertussis. And what's being advocated in particular, and I'm sorry to say, this was a policy promoted by the ACIP historically without any data. This is another case where the ACIP took action without having any data to support the action when they promoted that cocooning should be used and parents and grandparents and anybody else, uncles, aunts, etc., need to be vaccinated once again with Tdap, particularly because of the acellular pertussis component, if they're going to be around the newly born child. But here's the thing. The pertussis vaccines aren't working. What they're doing, and I'm sure the Washington Post will call me out as a liar tomorrow, just like they did with COVID. It's the same reasoning. Pertussis vaccine masks the symptoms. It prevents you from having the symptoms, or it reduces them, but it doesn't prevent you from spreading the disease. It makes you a carrier. It makes it so that you're not aware that you're infected if you do come in contact with that newly born infant and place them at risk for potential pertussis. The data are in now all over the world. Pertussis vaccine does not prevent spread or infection, and it should not be a justification, nor should influenza vaccines, for breaking up the family, dividing the family, preventing grandparents, uncles, and aunts from coming together for the celebration of a newborn infant. This is a key point in time for families to come together and celebrate their success, celebrate their new member, and don't buy in. Please, I ask you, influencers, to do everything you can to shut down this initiative for #NoVaxNoVisit. It's not grounded in science. The science shows now it is not working. This logic of vaccinating people so that with the Tdap vaccine, and influenza vaccine, if they're going to be able to visit their grandchild or the newly born infant, is just not working. And I think we need to stop it. I'm speaking as a advisor to MAHA Action, not as a member of the ACIP at this moment, but you can rest assured that I'm going to be advocating that ACIP rescinds that vote and makes it clear that we no longer endorse this idea of cocooning. It's so damaging to families. It divides them. It's not necessary, and it doesn't work. Thanks for listening. And once again, Merry Christmas. Celebrate family now in this important time.
Thanks so much. And, thanks for always challenging the status quo. Everything ought to be on the table. The science is never settled. And, we need to do the best we can do, and we can obviously do much better. So thanks for being a big part of getting us there. Next up, we have Sayer G. He is the founder of Green Med Info, which provides a large library of scientific proof that really backs natural healing methods. He's the chairman of the Global Wellness Forum and one of our toughest and most steadfast MAHA warriors. Thanks so much. Thanks for all that you've done, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me here, Tony. As always, it's a joy. I was reflecting recently on the fact that as a, sort of lifelong activist, it's really hard sometimes to just stop and relax and take a breath and think about a lot of what has transpired in terms of the wins that we've seen. I got into this as a parent when my first child was being gestated, and I was in Florida at the time, and I had to really confront a lot of those questions parents face around whether to, engage the conventional medical model. And, that's what brought me into this movement. It wasn't academic, it was existential, whether or not to allow my child to be essentially a pin cushion. And many of us over the years have seen this movement go from a very peripheral, heretical, occupation to one that now, as we see this miraculous past year unfold before our eyes, there have been such incredible wins at so many levels and in so many particular concrete examples. For, in Florida, fluoride, for example, we have the end of medical mandates as an advocacy. Geoengineering is now, essentially we want clear skies. We want our children, we want to be able to breathe freely. I mean, these are advocacies that for so many years you'd be completely gaslit if you even mentioned this possibility that there was something wrong with the skies and, there could be pollution that could be harmful. And the media conspired, our government conspired, the medical institution, conspired, and then big tech to the point where you were treated like a criminal and completely had your tongue cut out if you even questioned these narratives. So having gone through that experience collectively, I'm sure many on the call and many of the heroes that are participating today, it's incredible to really reflect at the level of change that has been enacted just within the past year. So one of the coalition members in this incredible movement is Leah Wilson from Stand for Health Freedom. And she represents about 1 million advocates who have taken action in very concrete ways. And many of them are like myself and yourself. They're parents. They care, about the future of this country, and Make America Healthy Again is the most beautiful of all movements, right? It's not using children as a virtue signaling or a mechanism to, score political points. It's that we actually care about the future of our own progeny and everyone's, fate in this situation we're in. Today, we can say that the biggest win of all is that there is a federal reset that we, the people, for decades have spoken so persistently against all odds and against power that would literally destroy some of us. And at this point, we have allies now representing us. So I think the real miracle that's unfolding, because I'm one of the most cynical and skeptical of people when it comes to trusting government or really any authority outside myself. But what we have now is we have our own people that have shown that they are going to do exactly what we've asked for many years, Bobby being the most catalytic of all figures of our time in regard to that. So it's just a really amazing thing to see incredible wins that we can all celebrate, the ending of the poisoning of our bodies or coerced or forced medical interventions, for example, the gaslighting of the media. But the biggest win of all is to feel that suddenly as an American, right, to be able to feel proud and actually start trusting institutions again that I would never have considered doing after the way they treated me and my fellow Americans. I think that's a real win here. So I'm just really grateful and thankful for MAHA and all the grassroots efforts that led to this moment. So once again, thanks, Tony, for organizing this.
Thanks, Sarah. Orwell says telling the truth is a revolutionary act, and you've really been an incredible revolutionary. And you've done such incredible work, and you really suffered for it too. You were called one of the Disinformation dozen, which is now, one of the greatest badges of honor that you can possibly have. But, you've really suffered. People have threatened you. People have, taken part of your business, slowed down some of your personal progress. But it's just been so incredible that you keep on fighting, keep on advocating, keep on telling the truth. So thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Next up, we have another fighter for truth and accountability from big pharma, big food, big ag, really trying to make sure that companies are held responsible for toxins that go into our bodies, and really a fighter for making everybody healthier and getting us products that are going to help us rather than products that have been hurting us. So thanks so much, Gary Brecka. You've got millions of followers, and you've really helped us get these MAHA messages out.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tony. I'm glad that the mood is about celebrating wins and kind of taking a deep breath for a second. I think a lot of times we get on these calls and we just want to go after somebody or really pound our drum. But it has been an incredible year for MAHA. Last night I spoke at an event at Mar-a-Lago, and what I found really interesting was away from the stage and the panel talks, there were a lot of donor conversations that were centered around MAHA. And I've been to a number of events there for all different types of organizations. Russell, I thought you were supposed to speak with me last night. You didn't show up. I don't know where you were. Mike Tyson was there, General Flynn, but we didn't see you. But what was really interesting is this sort of shift that I was very palpable in the number of donor conversations that were centered around MAHA-like activities. And also, I felt for a long time that the last bastion of the government, at least since January, was the Environmental Protection Agency. So to see Cora, Mandy, and Administrator Lee Zeldin participating in these meetings and sort of pledging to give us a seat at the table is pretty astounding. I wouldn't just end by talking about something that's a little anecdotal, but I think it warrants highlighting on this meeting. I host these challenges. They're always free. Every few months, we'll do 3-day water fasting challenges, cold plunge challenges, detox challenges, different things to just get my followers and my community taking strides to develop good habits towards a state of optimal health. And early in the year, I did a detox challenge. And for this detox challenge, the vast majority of these, tens of thousands of people will participate in these, sometimes up to 75,000 people. And the vast majority of them will do these toxic burden tests. These are urine tests. Unilabs has them. Vibrant Wellness has them. And what was really astounding was the number of metabolites that would come up in the urine of these folks that participated in my detox challenge that were metabolites of insecticides, pesticides, and herbicides. Like glyphosate doesn't show up as glyphosate in the urine. It shows up as its metabolites, something called AMPA, these aminomethyl phosphonic acids, TCPs, PNPs, MDAs. And you'll get a toxic burden test. It'll look something like this. And you'll see all these weird chemical names. And then you see all of these different toxins that are sort of pegged out here to the right, which shows the level that you're excreting in the urine. And this means that you've had glyphosate or paraquat or one of these insecticides, herbicides, pesticides in your blood. The metabolite is now leaving in the urine, but it shows the level of toxic exposure. And the rationale, again, this is anecdotal, this is correlated, it's not causal. I know there's a lot of scientists on here, so I want to be cautious about making any too direct of a line here. And I also did not run a randomized clinical trial. This is, again, the large group meta-analysis. There are 5 big reasons why people join this challenge. About 75,000 of them. Persistent brain fog, morning headaches. They reported poor focus and concentration, muscle soreness, and diffuse joint pain. What was fascinating is the same metabolites of glyphosate and other insecticides and pesticides were showing up in the urine on these toxic profiles. So we intensely did 5 months of being very intentional about organic diets. We did some other things like sauna exposure, hydration with minerals, certain gut binders, very non-invasive kind of subtractive medicine type of things. Adding sweat to the routine, mobility to the routine, lymphatic drainage, and the folks that moved back into the normal or non-existent range over that 5-month period almost universally reported complete subsession of their symptoms, complete remission of their symptoms. Again, this is anecdotal, but brain fog, morning headaches, diffuse muscle soreness, joint pain, focus, concentration, all resolved after they were able to get these out of their tissues and out of their blood. So I'm so excited that the EPA is listening, giving us a seat at the table, because I know they seem to want to be pro-farmer, but very often pro-profit is also anti-humanity, because we can't, at the expense of subsidizing our crops, micro-poison the population to such scale. And I'm very excited about what next year holds for us with the Environmental Protection Agency. I want to congratulate all the MAHA warriors on here for work well done. We've all paid a price, in the media. But I wanted you to know some of the circles that I've been running in for quite a long time are now starting to shift, and MAHA is a core part of their agenda. And I'm sorry that I ran over my time, but look forward to hearing what Russell has to say.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gary. And it's a great point that we should really be grateful for the change, for the progress, for the wins. And like Governor Morrisey said at the start, I've been listening to you. I've been listening to all the thought leaders of the MAHA movement. I've been doing, cold plunges every morning. I've been doing red light therapy. I've been, testing for toxins. I've been supplementing for deficits, all of those kinds of things. And those are a big part of the MAHA movement. And you've been right at the forefront of it. So we're all really grateful for you. We all know we can do better, and we're grateful to have people like you, and then to have a government that is open to really looking at the latest science and not corporate corrupt science. So let's be grateful, let's do better, and we're getting close to a new year where we all start fighting for greater health. Next up, we have Russell Brand. And I always say nice things about Russell. And, he's an incredible character. I'm grateful for his participation in these calls. But Russell speaks for himself, and there's nothing I can say about him that you don't all already know. Thanks so much, Russell Brand, for coming on.
I'm going to thank you, Tony. I love you, mate. I'm going to be very brief and make up the time that dear Gary Brecka used to chide me for my non-attendance of a MAHA, not a MAHA event, a Mar-a-Lago. There's all these Mars. There's MAGA, Mar-a-Lago, MAHA. It's like speaking in tongues being involved in politics in the United States of America in 2025. And you're right, it is amazing that because of influential figures like Gary Brecka, who's walked the line very dexterously, with great dexterity, I want to say, with great dexterity, between scientific information, science education, nutrition, evangelism, and attainment, and business and commerce, and the political connotations of all of those intersecting ideas, that we now have a completely different approach to health and wellness. I suppose I first started thinking about that with Joe Rogan, that Joe Rogan meant there was a type of male wellness comparable to the emotional competence, or at least the conversations that could lead to competence, that began with Oprah Winfrey in the 90s. She brought people on her show, didn't she? Like Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, Eckhart Tolle, Marianne Williamson, people that sort of subsequently populated the world of emotional and mental wellness. It's pretty clear that anything that's housed within network television or any centralized institution now is open to charges of corruption, or at least bias, if not corruption. And those words are on a spectrum. I recently saw Dana White say, and I know this is as a result of his interactions and I guess it's fair to say, treatment from our own beloved Gary Brecka, that he would never go to a general practitioner doctor for a generalized health matter again. He said that if he had a broken bone, he would go. If he had, another acute medical condition, but if it was in dietary or nourishment or general wellness, he would go elsewhere. And when you speak to advanced or awakened or lucid and open medical practitioners, they'll tell you that so little of their time is spent on nutrition. And the problem with entrenched institutional bias is the nature of entrenched institutional bias is you're unaware of the nature of your biases. And because of the overreach of various institutions, like let's see, did you see Politico's interview with Bill Gates, how little pushback they gave Bill Gates when he was attacking Secretary Kennedy? They didn't at any point talk about Bill Gates's investment into the WHO study that suggested that all of us would have a unified digital ID. This is something that could be coming soon. They didn't say that you've in parts funded that study, that you are in fact the WHO's, or at least the Gates Foundation is the second or third largest donor to the WHO, and how that compromises any findings that the WHO may offer, particularly findings that might align with the business interests of Bill Gates. He laughed off the idea that he profits from vaccines and vaccine medicine. And what I would say is that we're fortunate on these calls to have a good number of people that have, I suppose, at different points, considerable personal risk, told the truth. I'm thinking of Dr. Malone, I suppose, particularly in this instance. I must confess I wasn't on at the very beginning of the call. People that have been bold, and I suppose it's the doctors, those that have gone through the arduous decades of education and learning and then have remained bold enough to tell the truth, to whom I'm most grateful. And I will say it's something that won't be taken for granted, because my country, the United Kingdom, seems to be heading rapidly in the opposite direction: the denial of truth, censorship, authoritarianism masked, and I use that word deliberately, as concern, a new super flu branded and announced.
Russell, we're having a little trouble hearing.
I think what happened is that MI5, the British deep state operatives, heard that I was entering into criticism of the UK and leapt on it. I'll just wrap it up there with my gratitude to you, Tony, and to all of you beautiful participants in this unifying and assiduous movement. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Russell. That's a great point. Politico, is telling us that Bill Gates, who helped poison us, is not a threat, and that Secretary Kennedy, who's working day and night to help heal us, is a great threat. So we know, what the truth is. We know what this all means. And, I'm just grateful to all the people who've come on this call. I'm grateful to you, Russell Brand, for the incredible work you've done, the incredible platform that you've given to the MAHA movement this year. I look forward to working with you next year. So thank you all for joining our last live call of 2025. We're going to have a pre-recorded show on the 31st, which is just going to be sort of like the highlights, the greatest hits from 2025. And I just want to say that we're grateful for all of you who've come on this show, all the speakers, all the listeners, all the followers, all the people out there who've been amplifying our messages, celebrating our victories with us, and the victories of the MAHA movement, which has been building for years and years and years, and which has this incredible opportunity now to make, lasting progress in changing the health of probably everybody on the planet. So tomorrow morning, you're going to receive a follow-up email with calls to action, with steps that we hope that you're going to take to help us with, the FCC problems with cell tower, things that are going on now. And we're really hopeful that you'll put out all of these messages, all the clips, and help us go into 2026 with real momentum. And then, next year, we're just going to keep right on going. We're going to bring on stakeholders from all sides, bring them on to the Media Hub, let them share their points of view, let them make their arguments. That's what real science is. That's where progress is going to come from. We don't want to substitute one form of settled science for a new form of settled science. We want to get the best possible science and be open to any kind of an outcome that's going to make people healthier. So one other thing that I'd like all of you to do is to sign up for the MAHA report on Substack. Get the most up-to-date, in-depth stories from MAHA News. We've got about a dozen writers who are just coming out with really great stories. We've got about 100,000 readers now. We're hoping to get to 1 million by the end of 2026 and to 5 million by the end of 2027. And then, definitely go to the mahaaction.com website, look at the legislative tracker, help us, join us, volunteer. This is such an important movement. This is a revolution. We hope you'll all take part in it. And most importantly, we hope that you enjoy, this holiday season, spend time with your families, with your friends, and gear up for an exciting, powerful MAHA movement in 2026.
America's children are sick, and moms have been betrayed. The time for empty promises, long past. Now is a time for action. MAHA is the most powerful force of collective action in generations. The grassroots power of moms and activists has created an army of health warriors with more reach than all mainstream media combined. Together, we can end the chronic disease epidemic. MAHA's influence is reaching millions. It's reaching Congress. And that energy, these chain reactions, are working.
How about Operation Stork Speed?
Dozens of food companies removing toxic ingredients.
I plan to lead by example.
MAHA is now.
We're talking about how to change the culture.
The American people want America healthy again.
There's a renaissance moment in health in America.
For health, freedom, and the truth. Join us at MAHA Action.